The desert was endless. A sea of golden ash and blistering wind stretched across the horizon like a punishment from the gods. Even Jaren, a seasoned mechanic with sunburned skin and cracked goggles, was starting to believe the rumors. Nothing lived out here. Not for long. Then he heard the screaming. It wasn't human. His crawler skidded to a stop beside a half-buried wreck. The hull of the downed skiff was torn open like tin, its engines long dead. But what made Jaren grab his toolkit and his rifle wasn't a wreck. It was what lay tied up beside it. Dragons. 3 of them. White-scaled, emaciated, their wings scorched by solar flares. Thick shackles clamped around their limbs, pinning them to metal stakes like discarded war trophies. Their eyes, glowing pale pink, were cracked with dehydration. One was barely breathing. Jaren's breath caught in his throat. Albinos, he whispered. He'd heard of them. Varnix-bred dragons, rare and feared, said to be cursed, sold illegally, used in off-world arenas, then dumped like trash when they failed to entertain. He dropped his rifle. The largest one lifted its head as Jaren approached. Its voice echoed directly into his mind, weak, strained, but clear. Leave. We are poison. We were meant to die. Jaren knelt beside its face and touched the cracked scales gently. Yeah? Well, I don't do what I'm told. He worked quickly. Hydration packs first, then cutting tools. Plasma welders for the chain locks. The sun pounded down like judgment, but Jaren didn't stop. He wrapped their burns in thermal cloth and whispered to them like they were frightened animals. I fixed worse, he muttered. You're just machines with breath and bones. Why? The second dragon asked. Its voice was female, sharper, more cynical. Why save us? Because no one else will. It took 6 hours to free them. One collapsed entirely. The youngest, a juvenile whose wings were torn, tucked itself behind Jaren's crawler and refused to move. The other 2 stayed between him and the sun, shielding him with their bodies as he repaired his cooling coils. He learned their names. The big one was Raziel, old and scarred but proud. The female was Vess, sharp-tongued and skeptical. The small one was Kiro, barely old enough to fly, constantly shaking. Jaren loaded what little food he had into shared ration tubes and offered it without a word. Raziel watched him the whole time. You could sell us. Not interested. You could leave us and no one would know. I'd know. That night, a sandstorm rolled in. The dragons curled around a crawler, like a living shield. Jaren huddled in the center, listening to the storm howl outside. Somewhere beneath their breath and the rattling wind, he heard crying. Kiro. Jaren crawled over and placed a hand on the little dragon's snout. Hey, you're not going to die out here. Kiro sniffled. They left us. Our handlers. They whipped us, then ran when the ship crashed. Said we were cursed and useless. Said albinos bring shame. Jaren stared into the young dragon's eyes. Then let's prove them wrong. They moved at dawn. Jaren had patched one of the skiff repulsors, just enough to strap Kiro inside. Raziel and Vess insisted on walking, too weak to fly. They made their way across the desert like ghosts, man and beast shunned by society. But something changed as they walked. The dragons grew stronger. Their wounds began to close. They started speaking more. Jaren taught them jokes, told them how human engines worked, explained how machines broke, and how they could be fixed. They listened. Raziel even asked to help fix a broken stabilizer fin. With claws the size of steel beams, he held it steady like a pro. Jaren laughed. Not bad, old man. Raziel bared his teeth in something that might have been a smile. 3 days later, the bounty hunters came. Hoverbikes. 6 of them. Scorched brands on their armor. Step away from the dragons, the leader barked. They're property of the Gruff syndicate. Rare stock. We're taking them back. Jaren stepped forward. They're not stock. They're sentient beings. And they're with me. The bounty hunter grinned. That's so. The blast hit Jaren square in the chest. He flew back, rolling in the dust. The dragons roared. Razor launched first, his roar shaking the dunes. Vest soared next, breath catching fire midair. Kiro shrieked and dove with his teeth bared, striking like a comet. The desert turned to fire. Jaren barely saw through the pain. His armor had taken the worst of the blast, but his ribs were cracked. Still he watched as the albinos, everyone called useless, tore through their captors like fury made flesh. No fear, no hesitation, no mercy. When the last hunter tried to flee, Vest dropped in front of him and hissed, "Property?" She left nothing behind but ashes. Hours later, Razor returned to Jaren's side, his jaw slick with soot. "You still breathing, mechanic?" "Barely," Jaren croaked, clutching his side. "Next time, you argue with the bounty hunters." Razor chuckled. "Deal." They found a settlement on the edge of the desert. Small, poor, but free. Jaren traded spare parts for food and medicine. The locals stared at first, afraid. Then Kiro helped pull water from the well. Then Vest repaired a broken tower antenna with Jaren's guidance. Razor guarded the village at night from scavengers. And people stopped being afraid. They started calling the dragon protectors. One night, Jaren sat beside the fire, a wrench in one hand. Kiro curled beside him like a puppy. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked. Vest flicked her tail. "And go where?" "Someplace cold," Razor rumbled. "We've had enough sun." Kiro nuzzled Jaren's shoulder. "I want to stay. I like the smell of engine oil in your stories." Jaren smirked. "Then I guess I'm stuck with you albino freaks." Razor's eyes gleamed. "No, you're one of the albino freaks now. And in a desert that once tried to kill them all, for outcasts built a new kind of legend, where dragons were no longer cursed, and the human mechanic who saved them was family.